my forte. I learned so much from my dad. Worked for contractors my whole life as a kid. I really enjoy the process of working with experts. I really wanted to build a business that allowed me to develop relationships with the subs, and instead of having to have 20 employees that do everything, I wanted to be able to manage the process of bringing in client, defining their scope, getting the right people to execute their scope.
Are you looking for an amazing contractor, custom home builder in San Diego? Ladies and gentlemen, I have Stan Getchman here today with Stanley Dean Construction. Stan, how are you doing?
Good.
Awesome. So folks, today we're going to dive deep. I want to hear the story. I want to hear everything, how this company came into fruition. You ready?
Yeah, let's go.
Let's do it, Stan. So before construction, tell the audience a little bit about your background, how you got involved, how this company came into formation.
Well, I moved down from Seattle back in 06. Got here. It's kind of a reset. Okay, I had a background in sales up there, and I was just looking for a new start for various reasons. But loved California. Had visited California multiple times, but once I found San Diego, I knew it was a must to live here.
How old were you? How old were you when you came to San Diego?
Well, the first time I was like 22.
Okay.
When we came down with some friends. Just kind of made our way down the coast and then ended up in San Diego. So at that point, I actually rented a house in Soledad, was living here kind of back and forth to Seattle and here, dual living situations, and then moved back to Seattle for work. But then just had an itch to get back to San Diego for obvious reasons. I mean, we love the
sun and surf,
palm trees and sunshine. So moved down in 06 permanently. Did a really good friend of mine, Pam Morris, we had a company together with her. Again, I was just helping her with the sales side of what she did. Did that for a little while, then moved on, got a job. I was actually working for homes.com, selling websites to realtors.
No kidding, you didn't tell me that part.
Did that for a while, top producer, met some really good people there. But again, that was an interesting job because they're just on the phone, call lists, phone calls, gunning for top producer every month. That went okay. I'm not really built to work in a corporate setting, but I learned a lot of really good skills there from a sales standpoint, understanding got to get a lot of no's to get a yes.
So you're really good talking to people for sure.
Yeah, again, good at yes. And then following a process too, understanding why we were doing what we were doing, and then seeing the benefit in the result on my paychecks, right? So did that. That was in 07, 08, so I was selling websites to realtors, and the spiel was getting them in front of the other people that, it was a tough gig for realtors. It was the market crash. There was not a lot of real estate being sold.
I remember that, unfortunately, too well.
Yeah, I bet you did. So that, from there, I moved into, I'll say it, I moved into doing loan mods. I got talked into it, and I did that for about 4 months, realized how shady it was, couldn't do it. Had talked a couple of my really good friends into doing it with me, just learned how scummy it was.
Yeah.
And the banks were doing it the right way, but all these little people that popped up, their own shops, it was gross. So I didn't want to do that anymore. I had a buddy who was working for one of the largest REO brokers in San Diego. He was like, man, there's an opportunity. So these REO brokers were working with the banks on these foreclosed homes. So they did everything from cash for keys to get whoever, whether it was a tenant or the owner, out of the home, all the way through close of escrow on the sale on the other side of that, right? So that's a big process, and there's an asset management team. So for these brokers to be able to get all the listings from these banks, they had an asset management team in place that would have somebody go out and do the cash for key all the way through the marketing. And so, but where we stepped in with my buddy Kyle was we started cleaning out the homes. So these asset management teams, they needed contractors to come in. We did what was called a trash out, which getting just a lot of these homes.
I remember those days,
they were not in the nicest parts of town. The majority of them, some of them were, but they were disgusting. So they were trash them out, do what's called a sales clean, an initial landscape, and then we did minor repairs just to get them FHA compliant, fix and crack windows, smoke detectors, CO detectors. Scopes in there started to get a little larger, so I had a buddy who was a general contractor here in San Diego, Ryan McGuffey. Him and I worked together on that. So when I required a contractor's license, he worked with me on that so that we could work together through that. So that went well for quite some time.
So you did bigger jobs, not just trash outs.
Well, yeah. So it was again the trash out, sales clean, and initial landscape, and then I had to do a monthly landscape maintenance, right? So I had at one point I had like 120 properties that I had to service twice a month in San Diego, on top of all the other stuff. So it just started. I was working. This is when I met my wife. I was working 7 days a week, 16-hour days for 3 years straight.
Wow.
Okay, I mean, it was just, I was busy and just trying to, get it while it was good, right? Did that for a while, but as the market recovered, I was able to, so we some of these projects, they were, you'd have cracked slabs. Okay, so we'd have to go in and repair these slabs, and a lot of these homes, people would go in and rip all the copper out of the walls. They would take every door, they would take every doorknob, they take out all the appliance, so the bank started asking us to replace some of this stuff. So the scopes became a little larger. Again, working with my buddy Ryan, we were able to make all that work from a licensing perspective and just being compliant. But then as the market started to recover, I had this, because it started with one big REO broker, then it was two, then it was three.
Wow.
So I was working with the three largest REO brokers. But then, as there started to be a lot more regulation on the REO stuff and the contractors that could do this stuff and how it was worked, and it all got managed. You had to be like in these certain lists to be able to get the work, and it just started to get real weird and a very diluted market. There was a lot of contractors. There was no work for contractors. So they were all kind of forced into this niche with the bank stuff. So anyway, so as market recovered, I had a lot of realtors, that I had been doing the REO stuff for. Well, they were actually on the investment side. They were starting to flip these things, and so we started doing a lot of the flips for them. And again, working through that during that process, good friend of mine, Eric, and I didn't have the sign off as having worked for a general contractor to go and get my contractor's license. So I hit up my buddy Eric, was like, hey, he's a guy that can build anything. Smart kid, hard worker, was working for somebody else. I called him, he was up in Mammoth on a roof doing metal roofing, all the standing seam roofing. I was like, hey man, just talked him into, let's partner up. He had the sign off under a general contractor, so I was able to get him into school. I paid for all the schooling, got him, so we got a contractor's license. We partnered up, we worked together for 7 years. But we were able to really work with all these realtors that I had through the REO, all working all the bank-owned stuff. I had this good network that were calling me for stuff that required more contractor's license. So that was why we pushed hard to get the contractor's license. Not the agreement with my buddy and how we worked, before, but we got the contractor's license and we went hard. So we were doing renovations for years, doing all these flips. Learned a lot, and then we were working in, south of the 54, and doing a lot of work down
Spring Valley, Paradise Hills.
Exactly, all of that, right? So work off Imperial and Euclid. So we were working all over San Diego, and then it started moving from north, south of 52. We were in Claremont a lot, and we were Serra Mesa. And so anyway, so working through all of that, got to the renovation side was good. And then we did a couple room additions here and there, but for the most part, Eric and I focused on renovation. We started doing a lot of work with Warrior Foundation, which, another video for another day, but that really has turned into something that is a feel good for our business, my wife and I. So him and I, at some point, as goes with partnerships, they can be tricky, but this is one of my favorite people, Eric was, but him and I had different visions. I mean, he married my wife and I, right? He was our efficient, right? Yeah. So he's one of my dudes, and he's like family, but we had different visions for how we wanted to run the business. I wanted a brick and mortar. I wanted to spend money on things that he didn't see the value in it. I did, and over time, it just didn't, we just had we wanted to go in different directions. So ended up parting ways, which forced me then to go get my contractor's license, right? So I went and got my contractor's license. That was a crazy process, but it was meant to be. Passed test first try.
Nice.
That was a big day for my wife and I. We had one kid. We just got pregnant with our second.
Wow.
But that was, I remember that day. 2016, 17?
Okay.
17 when I actually got my own license. And then at that point, it was a big transition going from having a partner to like, okay, I want to do flying solo. So I had some good guys, that worked for me at the time. But at that point, I wanted to build something different than what I'd done in the past. So I'm good at managing people. I'm good at managing processes. I'm good at managing expectations, blah, blah, blah. Managing is kind of my forte. So I wanted to do something that was more non-performing. I can do a lot of these trades. I grew up, my dad, I learned so much from my dad. Worked for contractors my whole life as a kid. But I'm not as fast at these trades, and I'm not as good at these trades as a framing somebody who only does framing or only does drywall or only does electrical. I really enjoy the process of working with experts in every trade and knowing how to ask them the right questions. So I really wanted to build a business that allowed me to develop relationships with the subs, and instead of having to have 20 employees that do everything, I wanted to be able to manage the process of bringing in the client, defining their scope, getting the right people to execute their scope.
So the leader of leaders, basically.
Yeah, and again, that's where I'm working with the owners of the companies to get everything priced, but then I'm actually working with their employees in the field.
Yeah.
So understanding how to manage not just the relationship with the owners of these companies, but also how their employees in the field. Because yes, to some degree, they should be managing their employees, but I have to make sure that their employees are executing per plan, right? And schedule. And that we've defined scope before we start and all that. So just understanding how to do that. That was my strong suit, working with these people. So I wanted to build a company. I wanted to be non-performing, okay, and versus performing, where again, we had the 20 employees and built everything and did it all ourselves. But it was more efficient and more friendly to my goal of being with my family more often and having time with but building cool stuff. To be non-performing, which is where we more focus more on managing the scope, the schedule, the budget, that whole pre-con phase before we even start construction. So started moving more in that direction, started doing more room additions, that required permits and inspections, and kind of work our way through that. And then into ADUs, built a ton of ADUs, as everyone knows. And then through this process, we got to build some pretty amazing single family homes, couple mixed use projects, again, a lot of stuff with Warrior Foundation, their Freedom Station facilities. So just that evolution from the bank owned stuff to today, where now we focus on custom single family homes. I mean, estates. Like these are.
What's the largest property you?
3 acres, 11,000 square feet, right?
Wow.
Working on one right now, kicking off in the next month or so. It's, a little over an acre, but it's an 18,000 square foot home,
18,000.
So it's, those are what we want to focus on, because we want to be more focused on, it's not, for us, it's not, it's a revenue-driven model. We need obvious amount of revenue at a certain markup for us to be able to cover our bills, but then hopefully be profitable, right? Which is the goal. So that's another conversation for another day on just that whole model. But the goal is less projects, more revenue. Okay, so that's what we push
clientele,
towards.
it sounds like, right?
Yes.
Because
people that are looking, most of the people that are in the tax bracket that want to build that type of a home, they are entrepreneurs themselves on some level. Okay, so they understand the value of having somebody like us come to the table to manage that process from day one, working with the architects, working with the engineers, working with SDG&Es, working all, because there's all these different engineers. It's not just structural, it's civil, it's soils, it's shoring, it's all these different people. You got your architectural designers, you got your interior designers, you've got vendors and procurements, and you got and then all the subs that need to estimate the projects, and getting a budget nailed, getting that scope defined so there's no gap, making sure that the budget's nailed for the hard costs, and then we have all of our allowance costs. Like, big process, and really important to get it nailed before you start, right? So
on an average year, typically, how many projects are you doing? Average typical year?
I mean, it moves around a lot. Last few years, it's been maybe 7-8 projects a year, depending on the sizes of the homes. But again, we've been really blessed, and we're trying to just stay focused on 2 to 3 projects a year. Okay, we're good at what we do, so we want to be able to analyze, the client that we work with. We're looking for a certain type of client who wants a certain type of thing.
I love you said that, because I'm the same way. I'm very picky who I work with as well, because there's only so much time in the day, and you don't want to spread yourself thin, and you always want to provide the best. Right?
We want to provide the best. That's the key, because if you have too many projects going, you don't want to get fractured. So again, while it's a larger project, they take 2 years to build, sometimes 3, depending on the size of these projects. They take a long time to get from concept to completion. We want to be able to just have 2 to 3 going at a time, and then you're layering them in over the years, right? Again, so it's not about quantity, it's just really the quality, and just again, it's kind of niche, but we know, my wife and I know kind of what we want to accomplish as a family. So we've kind of built a model around what kind of revenue do we need.
So it's more a lifestyle goal too.
For us, yeah.
That's great.
Work is important, family first, but we want to make enough revenue through here to pay our employees well, give them everything they need to have have a career. So we don't have to worry about people, employees coming and going. We want loyalty. We've got good, loyal employees. They enjoy what they do, and that's a key.
And are you staying within San Diego County, or do you want to venture out anywhere else?
Not too far out. I mean, it depends, on the project. If it's something that's really over the top and it's a challenge that we want to tackle, because we like the challenging projects. So
what would be challenging to you? Like, give us an example. What would
I mean? Proximity to other building, some of these infill, we've done some infills, not multifamily, but mixed use. We're building an inch from the building next door, or we've got, projects that they require shoring and massive import of dirt, and then shoring walls 10 feet from the neighbor's home, or building in a canyon. I've got to build it into the side of a 2-to-1 slope. I've got to build this. We've got one that we're looking at that we hopefully get to build for a client in Mission Hills. The land's going through entitlement, but it's just an incredible home. It's all concrete and glass, but it's built on a slope. There's nowhere to put equipment, stage materials. It's a one-lane road in and out of this neighborhood.
That's challenging.
But it's a challenge, right? But we're set up for that. We are problem solvers. That's one of the biggest things we work with our employees is we're problem solvers. So going back to just the start, and it's my wife and I we trip sometimes just on knowing where we started and where we are now. Because once I got my contractor's license, before that it was a partnership with a buddy that went well until it didn't. And then once I got my license, that was when I had to drag my wife kicking and screaming to become my partner. She was on a path to become a veterinarian. She's a vet tech, worked for Torrey Pines Animal Hospital, and she was one of their first hires. She was, I think, either the first or second hire before they ever opened their doors. She was there for like 7 years, and by the end, she was running their practice. She was their practice manager. So I knew she had what I needed. I'm good as an operations guy, right? But where I failed, which I'm good at owning where I'm good and where I'm not. Okay, I was terrible on the bank stuff and the contract stuff and being compliant on everything and keeping that all in order. So I begged her, and and again, we at that point we had one daughter. She was pregnant with our second, so I was able to get her to come on board and partner up with me, and it afforded us some flexibility with the kids as we raised our family. Have been raising our family. Now we have three kids, 3 daughters. 10, 8, and we had 6th birthday yesterday on Cinco de Mayo. So
where are you located in San Diego? Where do you live?
Our offices are in Scripps Ranch. And my wife and I we just bought a home up in Poway.
Oh, that's awesome.
Over by Lake Poway. So
awesome.
The growth from day, starting during, when there was no work for anyone and finding a way to make that business successful, just bootstrapped it. Had no help from anyone financially, just had to do this on our own. Had one buddy who believed in me and gave me a $10,000 loan, which Timmy, back in the day, that was his contribution when I started with my buddy Eric. And then I paid that back in the first year, and the rest we've done on our own. And
wow.
So my wife's been a big piece of this. And, family owned, the moral ground. I was raised in a very religious family, okay, which, whether you're religious or not, I'm not very religious, but it did give me a moral ground. So I'm very big on just transparency. We're honest, we're open. If we're wrong, we'll admit we're wrong. We'll come up with a solution, we'll make it right. We will not stop until we get it right. Because we don't always get it right. Mistakes are part of the game, but we try to minimize those as we move forward, learn from the last mistake, don't make the same mistake twice, right? So we're fine with that. Tell our employees so they're not always on eggshells, just don't make it again, and try to make your mistakes not super financially detrimental to the company. But at the end of the day, they used to be my mistakes, right? So even when if somebody makes a mistake, it's our mistake, and we just come up with a way to make it right and move forward. So
without naming any names, tell me what's an ideal client or your favorite client that you
ideal client. I mean, it really is. It's just they are somebody who wants what they want. They just don't want to get ripped off, right? They don't want to be misled, but they have worked hard. They have either saved up or have waited for the right opportunity to build either their dream home or their vacation home, or what a lot of people that we build for, that's not their only home. It's a second or third home, right? It's here in San Diego, but they live somewhere else, right? So I can go into another day why we are a fit for somebody that doesn't live here, that wants a home built here.
That'll be another video.
Yeah, it's because it's cool the way we run everything. It's very they can see their projects. But they are probably a business owner of some sort, because they will understand the processes that we bring to the table and the value in those processes, and the level of communication that we bring to the table, because that's in our world and how we run our business. Communication is king, and being ahead of things, and a business owner understands trying to think 30 steps ahead, right? And that's one of the things that we do. We're always trying to think when we're building the home physically, but also when we're in that pre-construction and that project development phase, trying to think of everything 30 steps ahead so that nothing gets missed, so that we planned for that freaking shower drain that's supposed to be up against the wall versus in the middle of the shower pan. That has to be dug up before your foundation's poured. And so those, thinking those 30 steps ahead, from all the way to the counter details and tile details and how that's going to work together, but also making sure that we have all of the utilities planned out, that we know SDG&E takes a year, right? And so we start that process before we even start the home.
What's their typical budget?
I mean, it can be a couple million, it can be 20 million, so again, we're trending more towards probably that 5 to $15 million range.
That's a good sweet spot.
Yeah, it's a specific type of client, So we're looking for the client. That's what we're trying to work through too, is, just understanding how to get in front of those people that want that type of a home built. How do I get in front of them? That's the goal. So that's why we're working with you, because we're trying to figure out how to get in front of you guys and gals, right? So that's it, right? I don't know. I mean, if I'm missing anything there.
No, that was plenty. I mean, we've got a lot of other videos to cover for sure. And yeah, that was awesome. That was an awesome story, Stan, from taking me from the REO days where I was heavily involved as well, and seeing how transition and how resilient, and you just pivoted and thought out of the box. So that's an amazing story. And thanks for sharing with our audience out there, Stan. I'm sure they're going to reach out to you. And best way to get a hold of you if they want to reach out to you. What's the best way?
Call my cell phone, 858-342-8106. Office number, here we go, 858-433-7253. So that's our office number. You can email me at stan@constructionsd.com. You can hit our website. We have a discovery there you can fill out. That's constructionsd.com. So yeah, if you're looking for ideas on how to get a builder on board, call me. I'll walk you through. I'll have any type of discussion.
Perfect. Thanks again, Stan.
Yeah.
Stan the man, guys. Call him.